great story. It's funny. You're a funny guy.
You mean the way I talk?
It's just, you're just funny. It's the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how? I mean, what's funny about it?
Tommy, you got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say?
You're right.
Funny how? What?
You're funny.
You mean, let me understand this, because maybe it's me, I'm a little up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to fucking amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Just, how you tell the story. What?
No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the fuck am I funny? What the fuck is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
Get the fuck out of here, Tommy.
Okay, how's everybody doing this evening? My name is Kent, the channel is San Diego, and I'm in Carlsbad, California, in the United States of America. The reason I say that is because I know a lot of opportunities are around the world as far as cryptocurrencies are concerned. We're in the United States. We talk to people around the world. A lot of people are interested in cryptos around the world. We get a lot of interest from places all over the world. In fact, for some time, the country that had the most interest in the challenge application was Bangladesh. So we had Bangladesh people doing more challenges than any place else in the world. We have a lot of people in countries. I don't remember the top 5 or 6 countries, but literally around the world. So when I talk, I usually talk from the U.S. point of view. But I realize there's a lot of people around the world that do the challenge application. And there's a lot of people around the world that are interested in cryptocurrencies. I think more so than we are in the United States. And I want to talk a little bit about that right now, because I think the world is getting ready to flip. And when I say that, when I mean flip, what I really mean is I really mean that I think the world is getting ready to start using a world reserve currency besides the US dollar. And I'll talk a little bit about why the dollar is the U.S. world reserve currency. The reason why the dollar is the world reserve currency is because the dollar, after World War II, after the United States was victorious in Europe and in the Pacific, was very strong militarily and had a lot of industry and was probably at the height of its power. And at that time, the United States maintained a very large gold supply. Fort Knox, as we were taught when I was younger, that the United States had a very large gold supply in Fort Knox, had a large military, a very strong industrial base. So it was agreed that the United States dollar would be the trading currency around the world, because it was linked to gold, which was a commodity, but the commodity was very scarce and limited. And since the United States had a large supply of gold, and it was linked to the dollar, then it was considered a very stable currency to trade with around the world. So literally the world, instead of changing from currency to trade, or sending, a very hard to move a commodity like gold or silver, which was hard to measure out, hard to ship, could be easily stolen. All these things, they just decided to say, hey, we're going to trade in U.S. dollars, and then later on, the countries in the Middle East decided to dominate the oil in dollars. So literally, dollars become a very basic currency for the U.S., for the United States, for the world to trade in, and it became universal. Kind of an easy way for everybody to kind of trade at the same level, everybody to easily denominate what it is that they were buying and selling and do it in U.S. dollars. That was a great expansion for the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy grew, the dollars, because the world was hungry for dollars. The world was had a tremendous appetite for oil, because every country in the world was trying to increase their industrial capacity. They were trying to build more stuff so they could sell to other countries, including China. China increased their industrial base because they wanted to sell to the United States, a huge market. They had a great, China had a lot of population. The population needed jobs, so they created jobs by creating resources, or bringing oil into the country and producing products which were later sold in the United States. And of course, they had to do this all with dollars. So they held a lot of dollars. So the world has held dollars universally throughout the entire world, through all the countries that wanted to be in the industrial, to industrialize and to make products and goods to market and sell throughout the world, to do commerce. So that's how we got to where we're at today. And that's why the dollar has become so universally accepted, and that's why the dollar is very strong, and that's why people hold dollars, and that's why people in the United States have benefited by the dollar, and also by the way that the United States has been able to print a lot of dollars because of the world appetite for dollars. But in 1971, the United States decoupled the dollar from gold, so it no longer had this stable commodity that was scarce, that was backing it, that was completely decoupled. So now it just became a paper currency. However, it still remained very strong, simply because it had resources, it had technology. Of course, a lot of the technology in the days of Silicon Valley were come from the United States, and so the United States dollars continue to remain very, very strong. And the world has continued to support the dollar as a world reserve currency. However, today, what's going on is that we in the United States, and I think Jerome Powell here just recently said it, has decided that they are going to take a fiscal policy, a more generous fiscal policy, where they were going to allow inflation rates to rise. So when the targeted inflation rate in the past has been around 2%, now they're going to allow it to rise, which we don't know where or how far that the inflation rate will rise. I mean, basically, their target's always been around 2%. Now it's going to go much higher. But at the same time, they're going to try to keep interest rates low. And that's always been kind of a problem, because even though dollars were plentiful and inflation is growing and there's more and more dollars available, the dollars don't reach the people to actually stimulate the economy. The dollars stay within the banking system, and the dollars usually stay within a limited number of people that control the economies and control the world. So it really never got distributed, or the common person really hasn't ever benefited by all these expansion dollars that are being printed, especially now that we're in COVID and things are shut down and people really are struggling to make a living because the unemployment rate is so high. So how the feds juggle a low interest rate with a higher inflation rate is going to be an interesting it's going to be an interesting experiment. But Jerome Powell's going to do it. He's not an academic. He's more of a real world person. I think he was not in the public or in the academic world. He was more into the financial and into the world. I think he was an equity guy, and he made a lot of money in the equities. I don't exactly know what his background is, but I know that he wasn't a college professor. He didn't work at some of these, and I got a truck coming, but I don't think he's going to be too loud. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning here, by the way. Actually, 2 trucks coming. Here we go. And I know, there we go. That's kind of unusual. I never see those trucks. Maybe some more business leaving. Could be right now. I mean, so many businesses are shutting down. Maybe a couple more businesses decided to load up tonight and move out of town, because I see businesses all over that are shutting down. Storefronts that are closing and things happening. So this is going on more and more. Retail is just going off the grid. I mean, going on the internet, getting off the main street, going on to the internet. So you see that more and more. So those trucks could be loading up businesses that are leaving Main Street here, or downtown Main Street, or whatever it is. So anyway, back to my talk about the Federal Reserve, about the low interest rates, and about the higher inflation, which is what they're talking about doing. How that all plays out in the world, I don't know. But what I do know, that there is an alternative right now. Basically, the way the world has traded throughout the past however many years has been dollars, gold, and of course now we have digital currency, we have Bitcoin. So you have those three ways for people around the world to trade. And then of course you also have the factor where the United States uses the dollar as a weapon. So when they have sanctions against a country and they say, look, we're going to not give you any dollars, or we're not going to trade with you, they have to figure out other ways, alternative ways to feed or to clothe or to trade with other countries without using the US dollar, because the United States does not want to, because of whatever reason, they do not want to do business with them, so they do sanctions against them. And you've seen that a number of times with Donald Trump. That's one of the reasons why I dislike Donald Trump, is because I think he uses the dollar as a weapon. I don't think the dollar should be used as a weapon, because if you use the dollar as a weapon, then it no longer is what it was meant to be, which is a way for people to trade and expand, and not a way to punish people. So if you take, you're not, and if you really want to be a world reserve currency, and you want the world to prosper, you're not going to use the dollar as a give or a take away, depending on what you like or don't like about what somebody's doing, because not every country is always going to agree with other countries. So I don't think the dollar should be weaponized, which is another reason why I think that Bitcoin has so much opportunity, and why Bitcoin will be something that is used. I'm not saying it's going to take over the dollar as far as world reserve currency, but I'm going to tell you right now that there's a number that you need to put firmly in your brain that is going to make a difference in the future, and that's the number 21 million. Because just as gold was a scarce commodity, and that's why it was linked to the dollar, and why the dollar was used so as the currency of the world, Bitcoin is only 21 million ever will be mined. And they haven't all been mined yet, but they will be. I don't know what year it will be, but it's out there in the future quite a ways. But there's only going to be a fixed supply of Bitcoin. And as the world becomes more complicated, as the dollar becomes more inflated, of which the Federal Reserve is telling us that it is going to be more inflated, and as it becomes more plentiful, and as they loosen and start to allow inflation to rise, and we don't know how high it's going to rise, because right now they've got what they call they don't have a fixed monetary policy. They've got a monetary policy that's supposed to be adjustable to what is happening in the economy. So now we don't know where the inflation rate's going to be. They've always targeted it at 2%, but we don't know how high it could be. It could go a lot higher. Who knows how high it could go? So you could literally see your money evaporate in a very short period of time by keeping it in US dollars. And I firmly believe that's what's going to happen. When you see that happen, people will flee the dollar like you've never seen before, because nobody wants to see a bank account. Well, nobody wants to see it now. I mean, I'm already looking at this right now and thinking to myself, what do you got to do to hedge against this thing? It's going this tidal wave that's about ready to roll over all of us, which is, you're going to start to see everything go up in price. You're going to start to see automobile prices increase. You're going to start to see housing prices increase. You're going to start to see food, clothing, everything's going to be increased in what it costs. And it's going to be because we are living in this world that we have so many conditions that need to be met before anything can be done. I mean, social distancing, things being shut down, things being turned on, things being shut off, things being turned on, things being shut down again, and everything like that. This is going to cause an enormous amount of money printing in order to, to keep the economy going. And this is what's going to happen. And this is why I think they're giving you a flexible monetary policy right now, because they don't know how to adjust and how to react to the coming economic problems that are going to happen. We don't know. They don't know what's going to happen. The only way you can fix some of these issues is your is you're going to have to bail out people with the stimulus checks and with printing money to put back into the economy. Because if you don't do that, you're going to have the opposite of inflation. You're going to have deflation. If you have deflation, everything backs up. If everything backs up, then basically you can have a collapse pretty quickly. And then if you start to have a collapse or a retraction in the stock market, a collapse and a retraction in retail, then people become fearful. And if they become fearful, then things could get, I think, they get worse. Because if nobody wants to spend and nobody wants to do anything, then the economy, then it becomes you can't do anything then. You can't inflate the economy, you can't do anything because everybody hangs on to what they have, and really everything just stops and starts to go backwards. And that's the one thing, that's the Keynesian point of view, if you understand Keynesian economics. Keynesian economics is based on the fact that the expansion comes from people interacting and buying things. I mean, you want an expanding economy for things to grow, and that's what's happened for the last since the Great Depression. Things have continued to expand and grow with Keynesian economics. So this is what's going on. This is why I think Bitcoin's so attractive. This is why I'm betting on Bitcoin, and everybody else should be betting on Bitcoin too, because you have an adjustable economy right now that is being inflated with dollars that are being backed by nothing. I know people tell you this all the time, but you really need to understand what's happening. What's happening right now is that Bitcoin, the only fixed asset out there that is highly liquid, highly tradable, highly transferable, and is the most honest thing there is, simply because it's a blockchain recorded on thousands of computers around the world, that is pretty much decentralized as blockchains can get. So this is why you need to be so interested in tucking away a little Bitcoin for yourself. If you want to protect yourself about what's going on, don't worry about what the future holds. Just worry about getting a little Bitcoin off to the side, and protecting your family and protecting yourself, and knowing that you have something that is going to stay ahead of the game, or something that's going to stay ahead of this flexible monetary policy that's being put in front of us by Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman. So if you have any trepidations, if you have any fears, if you have any worries about the future, you can offset those. You can give yourself a little bit of stability, a little bit of feeling of security by buying a little Bitcoin. I think the world will flip, and I think the world will eventually all turn to cryptocurrencies. I think Bitcoin is probably the one that's going to control most of the cryptocurrency transactions. I think the altcoins with smart contracts are a little more vulnerable to things going wrong. Smart contracts are an exposure on a blockchain that makes them a little bit easier to attack. And then, of course, obviously with smart contracts too, you can change the smart contract. Bitcoin has a community that's very reliable, that's very stable, that pretty much hard codes everything, and you're not going to see much happen with Bitcoin. It's about as stable as it gets. It's way more stable, in my opinion, than the US dollar. Although the US dollar is backed by the United States government and backed by the United States people, but I still think that when you have people like Jerome Powell, and you have things like Corona going on, and you have the uncertainty of what's going to happen, I think Bitcoin was far more stable than the U.S. currency and the U.S. dollar. Even though I'm a resident of the United States, I live in the United States, and I've lived here all my life, and I'm thankful for the United States and what it's done, but I still don't believe that the currency is going to be as strong as it's been in the past, and I still don't believe that things are going to be as good as they were as I was growing up. I think things are going to get much more difficult, and I'm already a little bit concerned, and that's why I'm asking people, telling people. This is why I make videos all the time, and I'm encouraging people, please flip over to the digital currency, flip over to the digital world. It's going to be the wave of the future, and it's going to give you a lot more security than hanging on to these dollars or trying to buy some asset that you don't know if it's going to keep up with inflation or not, or if it's going to be able to or you're going to be able to hang on to it. So anyway, kind of a long talk about an issue that I think that that is going to be more apparent as time unfolds. But I still say that Bitcoin is the future. I think Bitcoin's a wonderful thing. One of the interesting facts about Bitcoin, I actually, and I've made videos about this before, I believe the person that invented Bitcoin, everybody thinks it's Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't think it was Satoshi Nakamoto. I actually think that it was, oh gosh, I can't even think of his name now. Hal Finney. Hal Finney was the inventor of Bitcoin. I think Hal Finney was the inventor of Bitcoin. If you really study it, and you study it very hard, and I studied it pretty hard, I believe it was Hal Finney. Hal Finney is in Phoenix, Arizona right now. He has deceased, but his body has been put on ice or frozen, cryogenic or whatever they call it, and he is there. And the interesting part about this story is at the time that Hal Finney was living in Phoenix, Arizona, and just prior to the time that he passed away, my son, who was the inventor of the challenge application, who helped pretty much write most of the challenge application code and pretty much did everything, was trying to mine Bitcoin from Arizona State University's computer center. So at the same time, Hal Finney, being in Phoenix, Arizona, my son was in Phoenix, Arizona at the same time, trying to mine Bitcoin from the ASU computers. They never could figure it out. The reason they couldn't figure it out is because every night the computers would clear themselves and they were trying to mine Bitcoin from ASU computers. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and we've always thought that there was an interesting connection that he was mining Bitcoin or trying to mine Bitcoin from ASU at the same time Hal Finney was in his final days of life in basically the same area. I think he was in Scottsdale, and my son was in Tempe and Scottsdale, and we were very close together. So they were right there together at the same time. My son was discovering Bitcoin, and Hal Finney was there. And he had I think he had ALS and passed away during that period of time. So we always feel like there was an interesting connection between them at the time. And I think the reason why Hal Finney was preserved was that he had a belief that he's going to come back sometime in the future. And of course, he's going to know his private keys. And if he knows his private keys sometime in the future, that Bitcoin's still going to be there. And this could be a movie. I think this could be a really good movie of the story of Bitcoin, how Bitcoin was invented and who invented it, and it's kind of like this. It'd be like this sci-fi movie, because the inventor of Bitcoin is actually thinking or trying to wait for a future time when he can be revived or re-energized from being in a frozen state, and his ALS can be cured and he can come back to life and have all of his Bitcoin available for him to basically maybe change the world or do something unique in the world with all the money that has been accumulated by Bitcoin over the years. Why he's kind of been on he's been incapacitated, or he's been frozen. So anyway, I think that's an interesting story, and it's a fascinating thing. The whole Bitcoin story and the whole Bitcoin idea, I think, is kind of over everybody's heads. Not over everybody's heads. I actually kind of think it's kind of what would you say? Oh, the word would be it's supernatural. Maybe it's almost more than supernatural. Maybe it's almost it's spiritual. I don't know what you would say, but there's something going on with Bitcoin that supersedes the consciousness of most people, or the consciousness of the human mind. That's what I think, because it is a fascinating thing. It's if you studied it and think about it and know it and hear about it. And of course, my son is a Bitcoin fanatic. I think he knows more about Bitcoin than anybody else alive. I'd like to, he's one of these people. He's a very mathematical guy, and he's probably more quiet than he should be. He doesn't really talk as much as I talk, but I would like to get him on this channel sometime and just really let him explain to you everything he knows about Bitcoin, and not only that, give you all his understandings of all the things that he's been able to explore in cryptocurrency, because he's very, very, very knowledgeable of cryptocurrencies, and he's also very knowledgeable about how to build communities, and he's built a pretty good community so far with Challenge. So anyway, he's had a connection with this since he's been a little boy. Ever since he was a little kid, he was interested in this kind of stuff, even kind of before Bitcoin and even before cryptocurrency or something like this. This has always been his passion and his interest. So he's always had kind of a connection with this kind of stuff. So it's always kind of been interesting to me. I've watched it from afar. I didn't really get interested in it until EOS, or a little bit before EOS came about. But he's been involved in this for a long, long time. Like I say, he's like kind of a quiet guy. He doesn't really talk too much. If you know him, if you talk to him on Telegram, I know he talks to quite a few people on Telegram, but he's not really very much. He's tried to make a few videos, but he's not the kind of, he's not more like his mother and me are both people that are out there talking all the time. We're more, I guess what I would say is I'm a little bit more, what would you say? I'm a little bit more social. Even though he's a very, very, very nice person and he's very easy to talk to, but I guess I just talk a little bit more than he does. But someday I'd like to get him on here and talk to him a little bit more about Bitcoin and about actually the more technical side of blockchain, and maybe the more technical side of building applications and stuff like that. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much.